Have you ever watched an elite soccer team after a brutal Saturday match and just wondered, how on earth are they going to be ready to go again next weekend? Well, it's definitely not luck, and it's not magic. It's a science. And today, we're going to break down that science and solve the weekly performance puzzle. So let's just dive right in. This is the million-dollar question for every single coach, right? How do you get your players to be at their absolute peak every single weekend without completely running them into the ground? It's this constant balancing act between fitness and fatigue. And the answer, really, is to think of it like a high-stakes puzzle. Every single piece, how hard you train, and most importantly, when you rest, it all has to fit together perfectly. Because if you get one of those pieces wrong, you're looking at injuries, burnout, and a loss on game day.
Now, this puzzle has a technical name. It's called microcycle periodization. And really, all that means is it's the science of the 7-day plan. It's all about this strategic game of push and pull. You apply just enough stress to make the body stronger, and then you pull back with just the right amount of recovery so players show up on Saturday feeling fresh and explosive.
Okay, so let's start the clock. The final whistle from Saturday's game has just gone. We're now in phase 1, recover and reset. And let me tell you, these first 48 hours are absolutely crucial. They basically set the stage for the entire week. So let me ask you this. Your players have just put their bodies through hell for 90 minutes. When is the best time to give them a day off? Is it immediately, on Sunday, or do you wait? What does the science actually say? Well, the data here is, wow, it's incredibly clear. Take a look at this chart. The rate of non-contact injuries plummets when the day off is scheduled 2 days after the match, what the pros call match day +2. Not the day right after, but the second day after. The evidence is just overwhelming. And we're not talking about a small difference here. The impact is huge. Just by scheduling that rest day on MD +2, teams see a 2 to 3 times lower risk of injury. I mean, think about that. For a club, that one little scheduling decision could be the difference between having your star striker for the big game or losing them for a month. But here's where it gets interesting. Recovery on the day after the game doesn't look the same for everybody. The squad actually splits in two. Your starters, the ones who played 60+ minutes, they're doing active recovery. Light work to get the blood flowing. But the subs and the guys who didn't play, they're doing something totally different. It's called compensation training. So why is this so important? Well, if those subs don't get a hard workout, a fitness gap starts to form between them and the starters. This top-up session gives them the high-speed running they missed in the game, which is super important for preventing hamstring injuries. It keeps the whole squad on the same page physically, so when a sub is called on, they're truly ready to go. All right, we've recovered and we've reset. Now we're moving into the middle of the week. This is where you put in the hard yards. This is when the body is actually ready to absorb the training and adapt, to get stronger and faster. So, typically on a Tuesday and Wednesday, or match day -4 and -3, this is when the heavy work gets done, both physically and tactically. But this is the real tightrope walk for coaches. You have to push the players hard enough to improve, but how do you know where that line is? How much is too much? Well, it turns out more isn't always better. This U-shaped curve from a big study tells the whole story. Your injury risk is actually higher if you do too little high-speed work, and it's way higher if you do too much. That sweet spot, the lowest risk, is right there in the middle. And to hit that sweet spot week after week, coaches use specific models. On the left, you've got a framework called tactical periodization, where each day has a specific goal. And on the right, that's the data. That's what it looks like on the GPS monitors when the plan is working. The idea is to make sure every single workload is planned and purposeful. And a really common way to do this is to focus on strength and power 4 days out from the match. You'll see a lot of drills in smaller spaces, which forces more acceleration and deceleration. Then, the next day, on MD3, they'll open up the field for more endurance-based work, covering a lot more ground. This sequence is great because you're still working hard, but you're stressing different physical systems on each day. Okay, the heavy lifting is done. We've built up the fitness, now we're heading into the final, and you could argue the most important phase of the week, the final tune-up. This is all about getting the squad sharp and ready for Saturday. As you get closer to the game, the goal changes. You want to shed all that fatigue you built up midweek, but you have to maintain your sharpness. This is called the taper, and it's not about taking it easy, not at all. It's about being smart. You lower the amount of work, but you keep the intensity high. Now check this out because it's completely counterintuitive. You'd think the last thing you want to do before a game is sprint, right? Wrong. The data shows that a few short, super sharp sprints hitting over 95% of your max speed just 2 days before a match is actually linked to a lower risk of hamstring injuries. It's like one final wake-up call for the muscles.
This table really lays out the strategy for the last 48 hours. The most common path is a moderate session 2 days out, followed by a very light, low-load session the day before the game. What's the one thing you never, ever do? You avoid 2 moderate days in a row. You have to give the body that final chance to get all its energy back.
And this quote just nails the why behind all of this. It's not just about the body, it's about the mind. The whole point is to prevent any staleness. You want your players stepping on that field feeling sharp, hungry, and explosive, not tired and heavy-legged from the week's training.
So let's zoom out now. We've looked at all the different parts of the week. What does it look like when we put all these evidence-based pieces of the puzzle together?
And here it is. This is the whole thing in one picture. You can see it all laid out. Number 2, that critical rest day on MD+2. Number 4, the heavy training block in the middle of the week. And then you have things like the max speed primer and the final taper. It's like a perfectly conducted symphony of stress and recovery.
So if you're going to remember just 4 things from all this, let it be these. 1. Rest on day +2. It's a game changer for reducing injuries. 2. Split the squad after games. Recovery for the starters, compensation for the subs. 3. Find that midweek sweet spot for high-speed running. Not too much, not too little. And 4. Taper smart. Drop the volume, keep the intensity. So you look at all this science and data and charts, and it's easy to think that coaching is just becoming a science experiment. It brings up a really interesting question. Is the art of coaching, that old school gut feeling, is it a thing of the past?
You know, maybe not, because there's one final principle that all the research points to, and it's called embracing the chaos. Because life happens. A player gets sick, a flight gets delayed, the pitch is a mess. The data gives you the perfect roadmap, but the best coaches are the artists who know when they need to take a detour. It turns out the best plan is the one that knows how to adapt to reality.